I am a real fan of this new generation of smart battery chargers, and let me explain why. Okay, last night I was working on my E320 wagon here, and I had the doors open too much, and the battery drained down. And I went to start the engine, and it kind of click, click, click. Rah, rah. So it was, I had to get going, I had to get home. So I just brought out my nice little smart battery charger here and plugged it in, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about the fact that it's going to sit here and overcharge my battery overnight. It's going to go through a cycle, and then it's going to shut down to just a slow trickle charge. And so that's not the only thing though. And in this video I'm going to show you some of the things that have actually happened, tell you a couple stories, and you'll understand just why I have become such a fan of these little chargers. For one thing, look at the size compared to some of the other chargers we're familiar with. This is amazing what this does for the size. Typical of a lot of technology today, everything's getting smaller. Now granted, it won't boost start a car's engine like the big battery chargers, but it's going to do pretty much everything else. So I'm going to start out first by showing you the key features in this particular smart charger here, and they're very similar on a lot of others on the market today. This is the C-Tech Multi 7002 charger. It's 7 amps, and it only has one button. Instead of 4 or 5 different switches and buttons, it has one button. It's called the mode button. And when you push this button, it'll cycle it through these 4 different modes. The modes being, that's normal battery. This is an AMG battery, like an Optima, and this is really important. It's very critical that you charge Optima batteries properly, and I like Optima batteries. This is called supply, and you would use this if you're storing a car and you just want to give it a trickle charge to keep the battery from dying. And then over here is the recondition function. Now this is the one I really like, and I'm going to tell you a story a little later in this video so you'll understand why I'm so excited to have a recondition feature on this charger. So when I push the mode button, it'll move it from normal to AGM, and then to supply, and then to recondition, and then back to normal. And once I set which function I want to use, this top line shows the process. And that's really handy. A lot of chargers, you really don't know when you hook them up just how much charge is in the battery until you check it with a different tester. But this one, you can see it's gone up to number 2, and then it'll go over to this third one. You can see those little fill marks there, and then finally, when the battery is fully charged, this final battery will light up, and it'll go into a supply mode unless you've chosen recondition. So it's simple, it's practical, and it's highly efficient. I know some of you may be thinking, well, Kent, this is only 7 amps. That's not enough to really charge a battery. Man, I want to charge my battery really fast with 10, 20, 30, 40 amps. Well, the problem with that is there are 2 reasons that batteries fail before they should, or premature failure, so to speak. Number 1 is overcharging. Over 10 amps is hard on a battery. A consistent, steady amperage of that type can damage a battery. Particularly on these Optima batteries, you have to be really careful about overcharging. And the other reason is a battery discharging down to a low state, and that's what starts causing an increase of sulfate building up on the plates. So you want to kind of avoid those 2 issues, overcharging and letting a battery sit so long that it goes dead. And this can really help with both. Granted, it's only 7 amps, but it's always charging at a safe rate, and it's going to mean you're going to need a little pre-planning on your charging, and it may take a little longer, but in the end your battery is going to last a lot longer. And there's one thing I failed to point out. There's a little red light right there with an exclamation mark. So if you hook this up to a battery and it's not going to take a charge, there's something, maybe one of the plates is shorting or something, it's not going to sit there and start boiling on you. It's going to come on, that light's going to come on, it's going to shut the charger off. So there's kind of a fail-safe mechanism built into a lot of these smart chargers as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. There are a number of different makes and models of these chargers on the market. And you know, this is the one I like, but there are others that probably work just as well. Now, in closing, let me tell you a couple stories, recent success stories. First off, I had a ever-ready large diesel battery that I purchased from Walmart, you know, a couple years ago. And it was in one of my diesels. Granted, I did not drive it that often, and I would try to use a trickle charger to keep it charged. But after about a year, this battery started, you know, just not performing. You know, I'd let the car sit for a couple weeks, and you'd get out there and it just crank, crank, crank. So I was all ready to take this battery back and exchange it. And when I got this charger, I thought, well, let's test this out. And I put it on recondition mode. Now, what recondition mode does is it tries to knock some of that sulfation off the plates that's built up from a battery that's been undercharged or lack of use. And what it does is it gives these pulse charges to it. You know, anywhere up to close to 15 volts, and it like shocks the plates. And then it backs off, and then it shocks the plates. And if it's not too bad, some of that sulfate will drop off to the bottom of the battery. You know, when I've read about this, I was a little skeptical. I remember back 20, 30 years ago, I used to buy this stuff from J.C. Whitney that was like the secret formula that you would pour into batteries, and then you'd charge them, and they would miraculously recover. And I actually had a couple batteries get revived by some of this. I kind of thought it was like snake oil, but basically what it was doing, it was a chemical that would go in and try to desulfate the plates inside the battery. But let me tell you the most recent success story. Now you see this E320 wagon here. If you've watched any other of my videos, you know I've talked about how I acquired it, what I've been doing to it to repair it. But it had sat for a year, 1 year, without it being started. And it had, just before the owners parked it because of a transmission problem, they went to Mercedes-Benz and purchased a brand new Mercedes factory battery, and they put it in it. And I don't know if you know this, but Mercedes-Benz batteries, they're kind of white, and you can almost kind of see into them. You can actually see the fluid level in the battery. And you could kind of look into this battery, and you could see the whiteness of the sulfation. 1 year. Now, what was interesting is it still had a residual charge in it. And this is pretty much a key. You know, if you've drained a battery down so low, let's say you've left your headlights on and you didn't catch it for a couple weeks and your car's parked off in some outbuilding, you may drain the battery so far down that no reconditioning technique is ever going to recover it. But if there's still voltage in the battery and you know, it's been sitting for a long time, you could get one of these chargers and try the reconditioning function. And I actually took this old Mercedes battery and put it through two cycles, and you can't believe it. That battery came back to life. I have it in my 300 TD wagon, which doesn't drive a lot, and I'll go out there after 2 or 3 weeks, and that baby will start right up. So if that doesn't help you become a believer in this new generation of smart battery chargers, I don't know what will. Now in part 1 we talked a little bit about the challenge of dealing with batteries, and then in this part I covered you know, smart chargers. And in part 3, the final part of this series on batteries, I'm going to talk about some of the new generation of testers in order to determine the health and you know, even the voltage supply of a battery quickly and efficiently. So be sure and check out part 3 in this series.